Hello, I'm Mrs. Mercer, Decatur Township District Reading Specialist, here to teach your Sunday pre-reading Level 3 Printing Letters lesson for today. This lesson's a little more difficult to teach remotely, but we're just going to do the best we can. At the beginning of every lesson, you're going to review what you learned in pre-readings Level 1 and 2. So I want you to take a minute, pause the video, say and sing the alphabet. When you're done with that, I want you to pause the video again, and I want you to name the letters in sequence, that's in order. And then I want you to take a minute to seek and find letters together with your family. I'm going to hold this up just so you can use this as a review. You can pause the video and ask them some questions. Pause the video on this section, ask them questions for what's before and what's after, and then clap out some rhythms. Review the playing with beginning sounds. You can sing the song, ask the questions of the student, ask them what the beginning of sounds of certain words are, and then the play with rhyming words. So you can use that to review. So you'll review all this information before you start anything new. One thing you want to do before this section, if you're in the classroom, is check for knowledge. Also at home, ask the student or learner to write the alphabet. If there are any that they cannot write, start with trace letters, okay? So we're going to assume that there are several that they can't write for this lesson today. It's always good to review. Also, I've seen as students get older, incorrect letter formation really affects the time it takes for them to write information down in class, and therefore it puts them kind of behind in their learning because they're spending so much time incorrectly writing these letters, and it doesn't seem like a big deal to write them incorrectly now, but it takes a lot to unlearn the wrong habits. And if they're starting from the bottom up, and then when they start to write sentences, it does cause a significant lag in the speed in which they can write a sentence. So right now, on a video, in class, we would have these tactile cards for Sunday. I'm just going to show them and have you trace them on your iPad if possible, at least to show the correct letter formation, where to start to each of the parents. So we want them to use 2 fingers because that gives them more of an input and helps the neural pathways get the information into their brain. And even though it's kind of narrow, but this shows you where to start and where to finish for each letter. We're going to start with lowercase because that's the most common way that children or anyone will see letters formed, would be lowercase. What you want them to do when they trace these letters is say the name of the letter, but make sure you pay attention to the strokes. So for A, you would start at 1, go around with your 2 fingers, and then come back and down. Very important to start with this C, this soft side. You would start this about 1 o'clock on a clock, trace it, and then up and down. Parents, if you have to, if they're having trouble with fine motor skills, hold their 2 fingers and trace it with them. Or write the letter A on a piece of paper and guide them. B, always start at the top. This is a problem I see is when people start from the bottom. Lots of students just create their own handwriting, and it ends up costing them a lot of valuable time in about 2nd or 3rd grade. So go to the top, down, and then come back around and trace that. So do that. With the C, 1 swoop, starts about 1 o'clock. C. You want them to also say the letters when they trace them. So the D, the first stroke is here. D. Sure they're doing this correctly. Very important. E over E. Start with the 1. Always see where the 1 is, and that's where you start. Okay, for F, start at the top. Never start at the bottom line. F, sorry, I'm doing the sounds. You can also start to incorporate the sounds too. F, if you think your student can handle it. G, the one's right here. Trace, then back up and around, saying G. H, start at the top. H. I, start here, then come back and dot the I. I. G, or J, sorry. J, trace here, come back and dot the I. Always start at the 1. K, start at the 1, and if you want to pause the video, it's kind of hard to trace on top of this, I think, when you pause the video, but if you want to, pause the video so you have time to do it. Start here, K. Always go top down. L. It's important that they do this with their fingers and trace before they go to paper pencil. M, you start at the 1, down, over, over. Trace with 2 fingers. M. N, down and over. Say N while they do it. Okay. The O, start about 1, go all the way around. Always start near the top, never the bottom. O. P, start with the 1. P. Q, start with the 1, back up and bump it. Q. R, okay, down, up and bump it. R. These have little bumps on them that makes it more of a tactile input. So if you could have your students trace the letters the correct way, like on paper, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So the S, start with the 1, S. T, start with the 1, T. U, start with the 1, U. V, start with the 1, V. W. X, start with the 1. Y, start with the 1. And Z, always start with the 1. So now that you know the correct ways to form the letters, I'm going to go ahead and do it with the uppercase as well, just to make sure you know the correct formations. But always practice the lowercase first. Make sure that's mastered before you start using the uppercase letters. Same thing with 2 fingers. Follow what it says on the card. You can make these at home if you like as well. So the A, you start with the 1, then the 2, then across for the 3. A. Okay. B, always start at the top, then come back and form the second part. C, start at 1 o'clock, go around. D, start at the 1, down, then back and around. E, make sure they're saying it while they trace it. Start with the 1, E, 2, 3, 4. F. G. H. And doing this tracing while saying the letters and eventually saying the sounds will actually end up leading to better reading fluency. I, start in the middle, then come back up. I. J. J, K. Start with the one, down, K, L, M. Start the one, M, N, O, P, P, Q, Q, R, S, S, T, T, U, V, V. Make sure they say it while they trace it. W, W, X, X, Y, Y, Z, Z. Okay, so make sure that they can trace these accurately and make sure they do it with 2 fingers and say it at the same time. Okay. All right, so the first part of the draw a letter section, you can use at home. This is something you would do at home using a sand tray. You can use a plastic tray and put salt or sand or rice, anything that gives them kind of a tactile input so that they can write these letters, form them the correct way, but larger than what is on the cards. And this gross motor activity will help transfer it to fine motor when we decide to start with the handwriting. There are other things that you can use, especially in kindergarten or first grade or second grade. Sand. You can use sand, shaving cream, and you can actually just use a paper and pencil and just do it large. So what you're going to do, you'll dictate the name of the letters of the alphabet and have them write this in the sand trays. So you'll want to focus on letters that they don't know, or all of them, just for extra practice and to input that into their brain. So you're going to repeat the letter. You'll say the letter, the learner will repeat the letter, and then they will write it in the sand tray or whatever you're using, your shaving cream, whatever fun surface that you can use, or even just on top of the desk. But make sure that they are using the correct letter formation. It is so critical to learn this correctly, because once they've learned it incorrectly, it is very, very hard to unteach. So you can also use carpet samples, even sandpaper. Don't make it too gritty though. Okay, so after you've had a chance to do some of that, and it may be too much, you might have to split this lesson up. So now I want to go over now that we're going to move to the fine motor, the actual printing of the letters, I want to discuss how critical it is to have correct pencil grasp. So I can't talk today. So if your student is not grasping their pencil correctly, correct it. You must correct it no matter how many times you have to reposition their fingers. This is critical for handwriting. It is also critical when they get older and they start writing larger sentences. It will take them so much longer. It is better to put the time in now. Do not allow them to hold that pencil incorrectly. If you have to get devices to help with that, that's fine. If you have to hold their hand and guide them, that's fine. But you want them to learn to hold their pencil the correct way. This is an example of how a left-handed person would hold their pencil correctly, and this is an example of how a right-handed person would hold their pencil correctly. I cannot stress enough how important this is to break them of if they are doing this incorrectly. Okay, so students, make sure you're holding your pencil correctly. Okay, so when we do print letters practice, we need to have, and if you're at home, you may not have paper like this, but if you're at school, your teacher should provide it. Paper like this for us to learn how to correctly print our letters. So if you could print this page for the further practice, that would be great. If you're at home and don't have this, then maybe if you could write the lines for your student, just do the best that you can. So first thing we want to do when we just practice printing letters, we don't even want to practice like a complete letter. We just want to practice the strokes. So on a paper, you can write a dot and lines. Have your student write the downstroke, the long downstroke, and practice it each time. Make sure they go to each dot down and start there and go down, start and go down, start and go down. Same here. On the midline, this is what this is called, the middle, the midline. Have them start a downstroke from the midline. Most of our smaller letters start there. And then for the O, you'll want to start at about 1 o'clock. So about 12 o'clock's right here. You're going to want to start at 1 o'clock and then go this way. Notice the arrow to form the circle. Practice doing that. You can pause the video and practice it on the paper you have. And then we're going to go to the next section. So when introducing how to print the letters correctly, you want to begin with letters that kind of use the same strokes. So you would begin with I, M, N, P, J, R, and U. These are the short letters that start with a downstroke from the dotted line. You've already been shown where to start these, and you would practice these. You have certain pages that are available in the media kit that you could use to do each letter. Unfortunately for the video, that's not exactly going to work. However, you know the correct formation from the tactile cards, and the parents can help you with that. So after you've mastered these letters, printing these letters, then you're going to move on to the tall letters. You begin with the downstroke. Notice all of these begin with a tall downstroke. You will start working on those letters. Practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect. Then, once you've mastered those, you're going to use the clock as a model. Begin the circle letters at 1 o'clock. Okay, you always begin them at 1. And then round. These all have like a round shape in them, and that's why you would use the 1 o'clock reference. Now here, the F is up higher, but we have a curve, and you still start it at 1 o'clock. Same with O, and then E is a little bit different. You kind of start it a little further and then come back around. Okay, once you've mastered those lowercase letters, then you're going to work on these slant letters. Start here and here and here. Always start at the one that we worked at with the tactile cards. Never start from the bottom. And then you will begin with the uppercase letters. We usually do the lowercase first because they're most common. You'll start with these uppercase letters, because they start with a downstroke from the top line. So you'll practice those all together. Then you'll use the clock as a model to begin these letters. These begin at 1 o'clock, and these begin at 12 o'clock. So 1 o'clock on the clock is just at the top, just slightly over. There you go, about 1 o'clock. Okay, and the O and the Q, you start right in the middle and go all the way around. So 12 o'clock on the clock. And then you'll finish with the slant letters below and continue to practice. Make sure that the students are using the correct format when they're printing their letters. You will do one letter per day until it is mastered. You do not want to do several letters in one day. So one letter at a session, but make sure you review all the known letters at each session. So you're going to want to ask them if you've already taught the I, the M, N, P, J. You will want to review them and have them write those as well. But you will only introduce the formation of one letter per day or per session. Okay. That's the end of our printing letters, pre-reading level 3 Sunday lesson for today. Thank you and have a great day.